This week's video is part 2 of the abstract landscape painting that I started last week. So you're going to see the messy middle, building up layers, and the clarification at the end. If we haven't met before, I'm Pat from Scrivener Art and Design in Parksville, British Columbia on beautiful Vancouver Island. If you're enjoying my videos, give them a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment or question below. I promise you I will answer any questions that you have. So let's get on with the video. Now that the paint is blocked in, I'm going to continue working on it, adding subsequent layers. If you didn't watch the block-in video, I'll put the link in the description below so that you can check that one out. I'm adding the trees in the tree line now, and I am taking artistic license with this. I'm not copying the photo reference exactly. I'm juicing up my colors some. I'm using a color shaper brush, and it's silicone, using it on its side to get those tree-like marks rather than using a brush. Now I'm using a palette knife to put in the tree line between the shadow and the trees. Switching back and forth between your tools is a good way to have variety in your marks. So not always using a brush. Using tools like palette knives and color scrapers also keeps your painting looser because you have less control with these types of tools, especially if you hold your tools farther back and very loose in your hand. So just building up some color. You see me adding some green into the mountains. Now, this one maybe be a natural color, but I want to bring some of that green up from the tree line so that the painting is speaking throughout. It's not just having an isolated patch of green. So now I'm putting in the shadow of the tree line with a palette knife, and I want this to look kind of abstracted and blurry, not so perfect. Coming back in with the color shaper brush here, which is great for angles. I'm just going back in and changing some of the shapes up of my mountain range. I am using the violet oxide color for this. So oxide colors are natural mineral colors. This is a color that I don't use often. I bought a big tub of it, and so I'm trying to work it into my paintings, and some of the undertones of it do make lovely colors. So back to the palette knife. Palette knives are also great for rocky surfaces. If your goal is to loosen up your paintings, I have a 7 tips to loosen up PDF that you can get. I'll leave the link below, and you can hang it up on your studio wall as a reminder until you get in the habit of doing some of these things. So keep your colors moving around. It really helps to create a unified painting. And remember that we are building up layers, and so we can change this, but little hints of it will show through, and this is going to give your painting more interest than just having a flat layer of color. So coming into the sky now, adding some warm tones as well. You can add a glazing medium to this if you would like to have it stay open longer. This is if you're working in acrylic. If you're working in cold wax and oil or oil paint, no need to do that. So bringing in some orange, again, staying with the color shaper, just to smoosh around those colors. I'm working wet on wet. Now using a brush, and you can note how I'm handling it a long way back on the handle to stay loose, and I'm bringing some warm tones into the sky here. So again, a bit of a relationship to the color I have in the water. So continuing to add some more warmer blue into this. So it's nice to have a variety of cool and warm blues in your sky, and especially if you have some warm blue other places in your painting like I do. So I'm just trying to stay very loose and blend this in, adding some more peachy tone here, bringing my sky across. And again, I'm not trying to copy the painting or the photo anymore. I'm really just working with the painting in front of me. I actually did this painting as a demo in one of my Simplify the Landscape workshops. I'm going to have one of those workshops coming up in my studio on April 30th and May 1st. My studio is in Parksville on Vancouver Island. If you're in the area and you would like to attend, there is still a few spaces left. If you would like to take Simplify the Landscape on Zoom, I'll put a link to that below as well. And you can come in from anywhere in the world. If the time zone doesn't work for you, you can still get the recording. So again, just feathering this color, trying to get wispiness in the clouds. So I'm just trying to make an interesting sky, not a flat looking sky, and certainly not relying on the photograph. Putting in some of that reflection down at the bottom here. And now coming back onto the mountains with a lighter color. And this again, I've mixed up with the violet oxide and some red and yellow in it. So this is going to provide quite a bit of optical texture, so not texture that's actually built up a lot on the painting, but it looks textured. So other things that you can use if you even want more texture is you can mix some gel medium in with your paint to make it bulkier and have a little more texture. And on rocks in particular, one gel that I like to use is the lava paste. It actually has lava in it and will leave a kind of a granite looking pebbly texture to it. So that can be quite nice on rocks. Just adding some dark back in. So you always want to be aware of your values. When you're painting, it's so easy to push towards the mid-tones, especially if you're working too close up. So you always want to get back a ways. The other thing you can do is take a photograph with your cell phone and pop it into the editing and change it into mono so that you're seeing it in black and white. Color can be very deceiving about its value, so that's a really good way to check how things are looking and if something is just too high of a contrast in a place, or just it shows mistakes so well. And also by having it very tiny, sometimes things show up more than when you're working on them in a bigger format. So this actual painting is 24 by 24 inches. It is available in my studio, or of course you can buy it and I can ship it to you if it's something that you're interested in. So just coming in and putting in a little bit of a tree line on that side as well. Sometimes we have to make corrections, not necessarily based on the photograph, but based on the painting in front of us. So I have left the photo reference up for you to see, but as you can see, mine is hanging off to the side of the painting, and I'm not really paying much attention to it. So I like to use a photograph sometimes, especially when I'm teaching. It gives students a place to start from, so they're not just coming out of thin air, especially if you have not a lot of experience. It's nice to have a photo reference so that you know where you're going. But you need to abandon that reference unless you want a really realistic painting. You need to just start painting the painting instead of painting the photograph. I hope that makes sense. So again, just working on the shadow down here, blocking it in darker. Kind of wiggling my color scraper brush around to give it a little bit of movement and not be such a flat line. Oops, I had a little bit of color on the back side of my color shaper. So I'm just going to blend that in. One thing I like is to have a lot of paint on my canvas. I do like to build up many layers and have a rich surface. Some people paint with acrylic very, very thin, and you can see the canvas texture coming through. I prefer not to see the canvas texture, so I do often add gels to my paint to bulk them up and give them a little bit more presence on the painting. So working on the water now, it's building up some more layers. Again, I'm working wet on wet. Color mixing right on the canvas. So often I change things many times before they feel right to me. And this is the beauty of acrylic, that it dries fast and you can build up layers quite quickly in your work. Here I'm using a catalyst wedge. I like these to smooth my paint out. So be sure you try some of these different tools out and see what you like to use. You just don't have to stick with the brush. There's lots of other things, and they're going to help make your work more contemporary, a little looser. I'm coming down in this area with some mauve shade of paint. You see some of this up in the mountains, and I just mix this color with the colors on my palette again, so it will have some red and violet oxide, a bit of yellow to mute it down. It is an opaque color. So I've been trying really hard to use up the paints that I have in my studio, things that I haven't necessarily been using because they didn't appeal to me, but I have been using them up, and I have to say my inventory on acrylic paint is really getting down now. So if you have a chance and are interested in supporting me to buy some more paint, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account that you can buy one coffee for $5 or several, entirely up to you. But I appreciate it. It helps me to continue on making paintings for you to observe and learn from. The link for the Buy Me a Coffee page is in the description below, and there's no obligation. It's just if you want to help support my practice, I would be ever so grateful. So I wasn't happy with the shadow at the bottom, and I just couldn't seem to get it right. So I am using a piece of tracing paper here and tracing the shadow or the mountains onto the tracing paper. And I'm going to cut that out. As you can see here, I've cut it, flipped it over. I'm using a Posca pen, which is acrylic, to draw around the shape. You want to make sure that your paint is totally dry when you do this, because otherwise you will wreck the nib on that pen. So whatever you use, you just want it to show up. But this is a little trick to get the reflection more accurate than I was able to do freehand. So I'm going to come in now and just work on the water down below the reflection and try and get this looking a little more like it represents the mountains. It can be minor adjustments that make major differences in your work. So when you're getting near the end of a painting, you want to be sure to slow down and start asking yourself questions about things that maybe aren't working, something that is bothering you, something that doesn't feel right. Of course, reach out for guidance. If you're not already on my Facebook community group, that's an opportunity for you to come over there and be able to post pictures of paintings that you have done and get feedback on them. It's a very supportive group, and I think that you would enjoy it and it could be very helpful for you. So look that up if you're over on Facebook and just pop the answers to the couple of questions in the box and I'll let you into the group. I'd love to see you there. One thing I like to do when I'm near the end of my painting is to put a coat of medium on it, a gloss medium. That offers you some protection so that if you do something at the end or near the end that you don't like, you can wipe it off easily while it's still wet. It's not going to go into the color underneath because you have put that barrier layer. That's kind of like a bit of insurance. So once I am finished the painting, I will put an actual barrier layer on the painting. This is like a mixture of soft gloss medium with some water in it, and I make quite a thin mixture. Put that on to seal it, and then on top of that I will put a couple of coats of satin varnish. I like the satin finish. It gives it a little bit of sheen, but not so glossy that you're getting a glare off the lights. I finish my edges with a solid color depending on the painting. So in this case, it's finished in a grayish tone. I do normally sign the front of my paintings. Depends on the painting itself, but often in the bottom right corner, but not always. The other thing you should always do on the back of your painting is put the title of it. I use inventory numbers on mine, and I put the title as well as my name and my signature. So I think that's important. So there's a document, a way that it's documented on the back. I do also put my business card on, but that can go missing. So it's really important to sign the back of your canvas. You want to use something that won't bleed through, so don't use a Sharpie because that can bleed through over time. So it can be something like graphite, works well, or just even a ballpoint pen. Just adding a little bit more orange up top. This is kind of where I want the eye to go, so there's kind of a couple of focal points happening. I didn't want as much orange off on the right side of this painting in the sky. This is just a beautiful lake. I mentioned in my other video that it is Lake Moraine in the Canadian Rockies in Alberta near Jasper, and it's one of my favorite places. I got to enjoy this while I lived in Jasper many years ago, and it's just something very majestic about it. So getting near the finish on this painting, of course, I'm going to hang it where I can look at it and, maybe make a few tweaks after the fact. But for now, I'm feeling like it's getting pretty close to that finish line. So that's where I encourage you to really slow things down. And often I take a picture and look at it in an app and maybe make any changes that I want to test in an app instead of on the actual canvas. This can save a lot of time and frustration by going back in and, maybe wrecking something that you didn't have to. So I am all about taking risks, but there's a time to take them, and that's at the earlier stages in the painting rather than when you're near finish. So try an app. I use UDoodle or Procreate, and I recommend UDoodle to people who don't want to delve into a big learning curve. I have a tutorial on that as well, and it's just a small app for editing and drawing on top of your work. It's fun, fast, and easy to use, and it's a great way to see different scenarios and what would happen if you tried different things. So again, just coming back in on the water here, bulking that up. So I like to have juicier, thicker paint near the front of my painting, the bottom, which would be the front of the landscape, just to bring a little bit more attention. Now, acrylic paint does shrink down, so it might look like a lot when it's wet, but it will shrink. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy painting.